Well, I really thought that today I was going to finally get out of doing another NVIDIA video, but then NVIDIA dropped the bomb on us and revealed these charts. So I think we need to take a time to look at them. Okay, so this one's not scripted. This is straight up just you and me guys talking. We're having a conversation here about this. So right after the presentation on Monday where NVIDIA showed off the new 2000 series, so the 2070, 2080, and 2080 Ti graphics cards featuring Turing, and as well as ray tracing being a huge thing. So, you know, tensor cores, RT cores being in the GPUs is huge. There was a lot of talk about performance, or rather the talk was about the lack of talk that there was about performance compared to Pascal, so previous generations. So we really weren't giving anything other than a generic metric regarding gigaarrays, which are a real metric. That's something I've been researching quite heavily to have. That's what I was working on when this happened. So something about ray tracing as far as it appears in the entire realm of computer gaming, not just with RTX. So that will be coming. So I had to interject with this here. So there are a couple of slides that NVIDIA released to show performance of the RTX 2080 specifically. So we're going to look over those charts, and that's what we're discussing here. So I'm going to not be on screen. We're going to throw the first chart up right now, and you can see it. So the first one we're going to look at is what they're labeling as the impossible now possible. So 4K HDR 60 Hertz Gaming. So all of the games listed here utilize HDR. So a lot of people are going to look at this, and the first thing they're going to go is, okay, so a 1080 Ti can run 4K 60 hertz with the right settings, which is true. Even the 1080 can pull off 4K 60 hertz, 60 FPS gaming if you tune the settings quite right. But some of these games, while yes, they are kind of favored towards NVIDIA. I mean, we've got Destiny 2, which NVIDIA did a lot with. Same thing with Resident Evil 7, as well as Final Fantasy 15. All of those showing over 60 FPS with HDR. Now, some of the other titles that are on here are really, they're AMD centric. There's something that AMD's kind of had the foothold in. Far Cry 5, Hitman, Battlefront 2. So, even Call of Duty has been one that's tended to favor better over on the AMD side. So now they aren't comparing to AMD here, but the biggest takeaway here is these are what we can presume to be average FPS. We don't know minimums. You don't know 1% lows, 0.1% lows. We also don't know the settings. That's kind of the biggest takeaway from this image is there's no descriptor on what the settings are. Are they high? Are they medium? Are they low? I wouldn't imagine they'd be low. Somewhere between a mix of medium and high maybe, but I don't know. I don't want to make the claim on either one of those because then we're going to be assuming performance based on metrics that we're making up to fit the numbers that we're seeing on this chart. So this is, it's good to see that. And another thing to note is HDR does take a hit on NVIDIA cards when you enable HDR. So they do tend to take a performance hit. So this is showing that even with that hit that they take, you're able to get that kind of performance on the 2080 class, the 80 class, not the Ti. So that's that chart. Let's move on to the other one. This is one that's labeled RTX 2080 2X 1080. So you've got three metrics to follow on here. You've got the 1080, you've got the 2080, and then you've got the 2080 plus DLSS, which is deep learning super sampling. So it's going to render it out. It's really hard to explain. Maybe we'll do a piece specifically on DLSS, but basically it's rendering at a lower resolution and super sampling it up to the point where you can't visually tell the difference. So it's arguable that if you can't tell a difference between true 4K and DLSS 4K, does the difference matter? That's just a question that I'm asking you guys. I'd like to hear your opinion on that one down below. But if you take away the DLSS and you look at raw gaming performance, you're seeing upwards to 50% performance increase, and that's in Shadow of War with HDR enabled. Notice that all of these titles, if HDR is available, they're utilizing HDR. So they're not really giving it in its best possible light because it could perform better without HDR on. So, but here's the problem. Data measured at 4K resolution. While we can look at this, and the first thing we're going to assume, and the first thing that I assume when looking at it, is they're referring to relative frames per second. So the 1 is the baseline. So 1 is It's a variable, so rather than have 100 different, or however, 1, 2, 3, whatever, the number of charts and have it going all over the place, they set a baseline of 100% being the 1080. So all of these titles performing at 4K, whatever the settings they use. Hopefully they use the same settings in both games, except for DLSS being enabled on the games that support it. That's the performance increase that NVIDIA is claiming you're going to get out of the 2080 from the 1080. Now, something to take into mind is NVIDIA is typically really accurate with their numbers. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, these numbers are the gospel and there's no need for reviews. I would recommend you wait until you get to read or watch a review. I'm really interested in DLSS to see what it does, because if we can get higher fidelity gaming frame rates, and even if it is a trick, if you will, I'd like to see what it can do. This is really tough because right now these are the only numbers that we have, and these aren't leaked from anyone. These are directly from NVIDIA, so they have it has their stamp on it, and it's good to finally see some performance metrics, but it's also very important to just try to stay in the realm of reality here. This is about what we expected to see it do. But still, until we see third-party reviews, independent reviews, it's going to be something I'd definitely say, just hold off. It's not too long now, less than 30 days. I can wait that long. Hopefully you can too. This has been Keith with WCCF Tech TV. Make sure you're subscribed and leave us a comment down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.